It's November 2006. J.K. Rowling is working in secret on the final chapters of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows in a hotel room in Edinburgh.
Yeah, I've helpfully made the note for myself. This will need very serious planning. I don't know when I wrote that. And I was quite right in that.
The Harry Potter series has taken 17 years to write. It's an epic saga of childhood confusion, danger, and adventure. But it's more than just a children's story. Behind the witchcraft and the wizardry lies an intensely moral fable about good and evil, love and hatred, life and death. My name is James Runcie. I'm a writer and a filmmaker, and I want to find out the secret of J.K. Rowling's success. How has she done it? And where has it all come from?
You look really nice, Joe. Oh, thank you.
This is J.K. Rowling's country house in Perthshire. Once inside, I decided to start the film by asking a few direct questions. What's your favourite virtue?
Courage.
What vice do you most despise?
Bigotry.
What are you most willing to forgive?
Gluttony.
What's your most marked characteristic?
I'm a trier.
What are you most afraid of?
Losing someone I love.
What's the quality you most like in a man?
Morals.
What's the quality you most like in a woman?
Generosity.
What do you most value about your friends?
Tolerance.
What's your principal defect?
Short fuse.
What's your favourite occupation?
Writing.
What's your dream of happiness?
Happy family.
The desire for a happy family comes, in part, from a difficult childhood. Like her orphaned hero Harry Potter, Joanne Rowling was brought up on a suburban British street, first in Yate, just outside Bristol, and then a few miles down the road in Winterbourne. The house even had a cupboard under the stairs. But unlike Harry Potter, Jo wasn't made to sleep there. She shares the same birthday as Harry Potter, the 31st of July. And together with her sister Di, endured similar childhood economies. What were your haircuts like?
Oh, that's just wrong.
They were terrible.
That, honestly, this is child abuse.
They were terrible.
I don't want to show it though.
I've got it here.
But
That's not right. That. Look at my fringe. I don't think anyone can stomach that for long.
If you're wondering, Jo is the one on the right.
If you weren't used to cutting hair, wouldn't you approach it in a gentle, slow manner?
Wouldn't you go to a hairdresser?
Well, maybe they could, but wouldn't you just cut it slowly and not attack it like a hatchet?
I do think you've come. Mine was always crooked, always.
Did you wear similar clothes?
Oh, God, yes.
Different colours.
Yeah,
but...
you always had pink, and I always had blue.
Because you were the boy, Jo?
Yeah.
Because you were the eldest?
Yeah, and I was supposed to be a boy, so...
Simon John.
I was supposed to be Simon John. I even know who I was supposed to be.
Oh, they told you?
Oh, yeah.
She was a massive disappointment.
Yeah. And so then I said quite hopefully, and when Di came along, were you disappointed too? No. I said, was that because you found out it was quite nice to have a girl? No. So then I just went upstairs and wept.
When Jo was 9 years old, the family moved to a village outside Chepstow on the edge of the Forest of Dean. Here was a location that offered a whole range of imaginative possibilities, magical creatures, mystery, and intrigue.
I'm very drawn to forest, and it's my favourite part of the Hogwarts grounds. The advantage of a forest is it can be so many things. It can be a place of enchantment. You never imagine a crowd in a forest, it's a solitary place. Is it because it used to be a place of shelter and safety to us, I suppose? So I think I'm very drawn to them, even though they can be spooky.
Jo wrote stories from an early age. There was resonant material all around her. She even lived next door to a graveyard. The family lived in this house. Jo and her sister Di earned extra pocket money as part-time cleaners of St. Luke's Church.
I cannot overstate how cold it got in this church in winter when we were cleaning it. It was freezing for £1 each. It's tragic, really. We must be in here loads, because we used to sign this book all the time. Oh, God, I know. Oh, look, it's me. There I am. Me and Di together. Joanne Rowling, age 12, Diane Rowling, age 10. It's a name I stole for Harry Potter. For an unpleasant character as well. Hide the book, lock it away. Forgotten about that. Yes.
Jo was the only member of the family to attend church services regularly and was baptized here at the age of 11.
Do you believe in God?
Yes. I do struggle with it. You know, I couldn't pretend that I'm not doubt-ridden about a lot of things, and that would be one of them, but I would say yes.
Do you think there's a life beyond this of some kind?
Yes, I think I do.
Jo's religious belief and her thoughts about love, death, and the afterlife were severely tested when her mother was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 1980.
I was 15 when she was diagnosed, but we now know that she was showing signs probably from when I was about 10 or 11. She would have odd losses of feeling in limbs, her balance actually was poor for a long time. And then it just got worse and worse, and she decided it was time to visit the doctor, but she wasn't expecting to hear anything. And then, you know, a year of tests, and there we were. She had a very virulent form of the illness, and at that time there were no drug treatments at all. They said, well, you've got multiple sclerosis. See you.
The illness was to have a devastating impact on the two girls, particularly as they found their father difficult. One of the reasons Harry Potter is so full of idealized father figures, Hagrid, Dumbledore, and Sirius Black, is that Jo's relationship with her own father was far from ideal.
I was very frightened of my father for a very long time, but also tried, well, it's a common combination, isn't it? I also tried desperately to get his approval and make him happy, I suppose. And then there came a point, quite shamingly late in life, where I couldn't do that anymore. And so I haven't had any contact with my father now for a few years.
The absence of any meaningful relationship with her father and the long, slow loss of her mother are two of the most important influences on Jo's writing. Anne Rowling died in 1990. She never knew about Harry Potter or the phenomenal success her daughter was about to enjoy. The death of Joanne Rowling's mother was to have a profound effect on her writing. In many ways, the whole of Harry Potter is one giant attempt to reclaim a childhood.
You think the dead we have loved ever truly leave us? You think that we don't recall them more clearly than ever in times of great trouble?
I'd been writing for 6 months before she died. The weird thing is, the essential plot didn't change after my mother died, but everything deepened and darkened. Harry was always going to lose his parents, and it was always going to be a quest, really, to avenge them, but to avenge everyone against this creature, this being who believes that he can make himself immortal by killing other people. So that's something I created before she died, but yes, it seeped into every part of the books. I think, in retrospect, now I've finished, I see just how much it informed everything.
Was she the first person you saw dead?
No, because I didn't see her dead, which was in deference to my father's wishes. I wanted to see her, and he didn't want me to see her, and I, mistakenly, as I look back, I agreed not to, and I really deeply regret that. I really, really, really wish I'd seen her. It didn't matter what she looked like, it would have made it easier. Because I do believe that the truth, which is another theme in the books, and certainly stems from my own past, I think that the truth is always easier than a lie or an evasion. Easier to deal with, and easier to live with.
After her mother's death, Jo moved to Portugal to teach English as a foreign language. She married Georges Arantush, a television journalist. Together they had a daughter, Jessica, but the marriage failed after 2 years. Jo succumbed to depression.
I'd had a short and really quite catastrophic marriage, and I'm left with this baby, and I've got to get this baby back to Britain, and I've got to rebuild us a life. And adrenaline kept me going through that, and it was only when I came to rest that it hit me what a complete mess I had made of my life. And that hit me quite hard. We were as skint as you can be without being homeless. In other words, we were existing entirely on benefits. And at that point, I was definitely clinically depressed. And that's just characterised for me by a numbness, a coldness, and an inability to believe that you will feel happy again, or that you could feel light-hearted again. It's just all the colour drained out of life, really. And I loved Jessica very, very much, and was terrified something was going to happen to her, because I think I'd gone into that very depressive mindset where everything's gone wrong, so this one good thing in my life will now go wrong as well. So it was almost a surprise to me every morning that she was still alive. I kept expecting her to die, or it was a bad, bad time.
Jo's depression inspired her creation of the Dementors in the Harry Potter series.
Dementors are among the foulest creatures that walk this earth. They infest the darkest, filthiest places. They glory in decay and despair. They drain peace, hope, and happiness out of the air around them. Get too near a Dementor, and every good feeling, every happy memory will be sucked out of you.
The Harry Potter books may be located in an alternative fantasy world, but they're filled with the pain and dilemmas of real life. They address serious moral questions about the nature of trust, loyalty, integrity, and the need to make a stand against evil. Through the series, Harry Potter has to learn what it means to be a force for good against the dark arts of Lord Voldemort.
I think we all understand what an act of evil is, and Voldemort qualifies extravagantly for acts of evil. He's killed not out of self-defense, not to protect, not for any of the reasons that we might all be able to envisage, or most of us could envisage ourselves killing in certain extreme situations if people we loved were threatened or in war. He's killed cold-bloodedly, sometimes for enjoyment, and for his own personal gain. I call that evil. And yes, at the end of the book, you have a clash of two utterly, utterly different, again, for want of a better word, souls. One that has been maimed and has become less than human, because to me, human includes the capacity to love, and Voldemort has deliberately dehumanized himself. And this flawed, vulnerable, damaged, and yet still fighting, still loving, still daring to love and daring to hope soul, which is Harry. And they meet and they clash, and it's what happens when they clash that gives us our denouement.
Jo locks herself in the Balmoral Hotel, Edinburgh, to work on the crucial final chapters of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. It's January the 11th, 2007, and the end of 17 years of writing.
Yeah, I think I've finished.
Hey, Jo, well done.
Thank you. Well, you don't know, it might be rubbish. Some people will loathe it. They'll absolutely loathe it. But the thing is, that's as it should be, because for some people to love it, others must loathe it. That's just in the nature of the plot. Some people won't be happy because of what they wanted to happen hasn't happened. And to an extent, there's so much expectation from the hardcore fans that I'm not sure I could ever match up to it. But I'm actually really, really happy with it. So it's very odd to think that this will be broadcast after loads of people have read it. And people may right now be throwing things at the screen, but I'm really happy with it. I like it. And I don't always feel like that.
Jo puts on the page numbers and saves the document. It's almost impossible to describe the level of expectation surrounding this one woman as she goes through the final stages towards publication. The process all seems so normal, almost boring. But this is now the most valuable manuscript in publishing history. She takes it in person to her agent, Christopher Little, in London. The handover is at Heathrow Airport at 10:43 on Friday the 12th of January 2007. The manuscript is taken to Jo's editor. After she's read it, she goes through it page by page, checking that every loose end is tied up. The publishers plan the book launch, and discussions concern how many copies J.K. Rowling will be able to sign.
A signing that will happen at midnight on publication day, but this will be about somewhere between, well, about 2,000 children for argument's sake.
Jo's agreed to sign for 8 hours.
Yes,
and
she
from
has.
midnight to...
You can't get that many people in anywhere.
Everyone here is forbidden to reveal anything about the plot to anyone.
We want everybody to get the book at the same time, and then everybody will know what happens at the same time, depending on how fast they read, of course.
So you're not going to tell me what happens?
I'm not going to tell you what happens. Can't tell you what happens. Be shot.
Would you lose your job if you told me what
I
happens?
can't tell you that, James.
Well, well, Mr. Potter, the whole thing starts with the tale of the three brothers.
On April the 23rd, Stephen Fry records the audiobook.
The stuff was quite disgusting, as though someone had liquidized bogey-flavoured every flavour beans.
He poses with Joe for photographs.
The big eyes are great, Stephen. Joe, keep engaged. Yeah.
Sorry.
It's all right. Yeah.
The Chinese have a saying, be careful what you wish for. I wondered how much J.K. Rowling wanted all this fame.
I wished to be published, and I wished more than anything in the world to be a writer. Did I wish there was, but that it never occurred to me in a million years, James, that people would search my dustbins, put a long lens camera on me on the beach, you know. Never occurred to me that a journalist would bang on the door of one of my oldest friends and offer her money to talk about me. Never occurred to me that my children would be scrutinised to see how spoilt they were because their parent was famous.
3 weeks before the launch of the final book, Joe attends the film premiere of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, the 5th book in the series. It's a starry, glamorous occasion, and Joe is expected to behave like a film star. But she is a writer, and when she started, she could hardly have expected all this attention.
What about the razzmatazz and all that stuff?
Well, some of it's fun, and some of it's frankly horrible. The fun bits are when you get to talk to people who have read your books. That's always great. What I find difficult is the kind of stagey midnight moment business. Because I'm not very good at it. I don't think that makes me a better person because I'm not good at it, I hasten to add, but I'm not good at it. I'm not a natural ta-da kind of person. I get all uptight about having to do that sort of stuff, and I feel like a prat. People definitely expect you to be visibly enjoying yourself. And I think Quentin Crisp said that was the secret to being good on television. Just look happy to be there. And I haven't always looked happy to be there. In fact, sometimes I've looked bloody miserable to be there. And I know that that's not televisually good, but you know, I've got better. I'm having quite a good time here.
In a factory in Suffolk, under conditions of extreme secrecy, the book is being printed. So far, the Harry Potter series has sold 350 million copies in 65 different languages. The conclusion to the series is about to become the fastest-selling book in history. Harry Potter is a global phenomenon, and J.K. Rowling is now in demand all over the world. It's clearly a story with a happy ending. Here she is with her husband Neil on a private jet her publisher has hired for them. He's a doctor. They married in 2001 and have 2 children, David and Mackenzie. I wondered what their marriage was like and if there were tensions.
What is J.K. Rowling like to live with?
Tell the truth.
Yeah, I'm going to tell the truth.
Excellent.
She'll detaches herself. When she becomes very stressed, she'll detach herself and only trust one person, and that's herself. So everyone else gets blocked out, and she becomes more and more stressed, and less able to accept any help.
So that's presumably quite stressful for you.
Well, it is stressful. basically the barriers go up, and it's not just me, but it's everyone else around it. Only one person, well, only one person is trusted, and she's got to do everything herself, despite the fact that, you know, it's not possible to do everything herself.
But Jo's single-mindedness has led to the most anticipated book launch in history. On July the 20th, 2007, at the Natural History Museum in London, 1,700 people, picked out of a lottery of 90,000 applicants, await J.K. Rowling's arrival.
Jo, millions of fans are waiting for this book all over the world. How do you deal with that level of expectation?
It swings between, on this book, thinking, it's the best I can do, it's how I always planned it to end, so that's going to have to be good enough. And occasionally you think, how can I ever live up to this?
2 hours to go. Jo's in her car on the way to the launch.
I can't believe I'm here. I'm even more excited than I thought I would be. Do you know, people queuing in Piccadilly 2 days ago from Belgium. I also really, really want a cigarette right now. And when I said that to Neil, he said, have you got one? And I should have done, but then I would have been hooked. Tomorrow I'd have gone out and bought 20. I can't smoke. With me, it's 40 a day or it's nothing.
The book is embargoed until 1 second past midnight. At that point, J.K. Rowling will open Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows and begin to read. The countdown takes place worldwide.
6!
Chapter 1. The Dark Lord Ascending. The two men appeared out of nowhere, a few yards apart in the narrow, moonlit lane. For a second they stood quite still, wands directed at each other's chests. Then, recognizing each other, they stowed their wands beneath their cloaks and started walking briskly in the same direction.
As Jo reads, fans all over the world collect their copies at last.
Best day of our lives. It feels amazing having this in our hands finally after waiting for 10 years and 16 hours today. Oh my God, I can't even believe that I can go back to the hotel room and read this. Like, I can read this. I can read Harry Potter.
Does it really matter now if I get a bit drunk and disorderly? I'll finish the book.
In London, from 20 past midnight until 7 in the morning, J.K. Rowling signed 1,700 copies of her book.
Here we are.
We're off!
First signing of the book, and then we can get
Do you know what, Hugo? You will find someone who is called Hugo in this book.
Thank you very much.
In the first 24 hours, 2.65 million books are bought in the United Kingdom and 8.3 million books are sold in the United States. That's over 7,000 copies a minute. What readers find at the end of the last book is that this has been a story about the redemptive power of love. But if you don't want to know the ending, this is the time to look away for a couple of minutes.
I felt it would be a betrayal of the character if I showed Harry doing anything other than living what all along he has discovered to be true, which is that love is the strongest power there is. And I thought a lot about people who had been through terrible things like wars, and having to come home and rebuild and espouse normality after seeing horrors has always seemed to me to be such a courageous thing to do. And climbing back to normality after trauma is much harder. It's much harder to rebuild than to destroy. In some ways it would have been a neat ending to kill him, a neater ending to kill him, but I felt it would have been a betrayal because I wanted my hero, and he's my hero, to do what I think is the most noble thing. So he came back from war and he tried to build a better world, I suppose, corny as that sounds, both on a small scale for a family and a larger scale.
Jo ends the series by giving Harry a family. She's worked out the future of all the surviving characters and draws out a family tree for the Potters and the Weasleys.
Victoire, who's in the epilogue, she is so named because she was born on the anniversary of the battle that finished it all, which is the 2nd of May, if anyone's been paying attention. And then Charlie had children or married.
Is he gay?
Dumbledore's gay. But I told a reader that once, and I thought she was going to slap me. But I always saw Dumbledore as gay. No, I don't think Charlie's gay. Just more interested in dragons than women. Percy married Audrey. Don't you think that's a very Percy-like wife's name? And they had Molly and Lucy. And then Fred, poor Fred, died in 1997. And then George, a lot of readers asked me, was George all right? And of course he wouldn't be all right, would he? That's the reality. I can't. But I think that he married Angelina, who was actually Fred's ex, so you can, maybe it's a bit unhealthy, but I think that they would have been happy as he could be without Fred. I think he really would have felt like part of himself died.
And then there's Ginny, who marries Harry.
And Ginny marries Harry, and they have James, Sirius, godparents Ron and Hermione. They have Albus Severus, who's the one I'm most interested in. And then third, Lily Luna, for their dear friend.
And what happens to Luna?
Oh, Luna marries Rolf Scamander, who is the grandson of a great naturalist, so they'd have a very interesting life, globe-trotting and looking for weird animals. But I think she'd have twin boys. But later, that would be much later in this lot, who all settled down earlier.
And are they happy?
Yes, I think so. My lot are all happy.
The twin boys have got names too?
Lorcan and Lysander, if that's all right with you.
Very Shakespearean.
I can't help it. You know what it was like? It was like running a race and you get to the finishing line and you're running too fast to stop, so I do know what happened afterwards. So I couldn't stop my imagination doing that. So I know this sounds an awful lot of detail to go into for your own satisfaction and not because you're planning to write more books, but that's just how it was. I couldn't stop. I had to know what happened next.
Well, you always have to know more than you put in, don't you?
Yeah, yeah. And I carried that on into another generation, but yes,
So all of that could be another book?
Yeah. Don't. No, it can't be. No. I think it would. I think it's definitely time to stop. Time to stop now. It gives me a certain satisfaction to say what I thought happened and to tell other people that because I would like my version to be the official version still, even though I've not written it in a book, because it's my world. But no, I don't want to write any more Hogwarts books.
It's clear that Jo has come to the end of a massive piece of writing. she's found a kind of closure, both in her work and in her family life.
I'm making David's birthday cake because he's 4 tomorrow. But it's just a family tea birthday cake, because the day after that we have the party for all his friends, and then he gets a shop-made Lightning McQueen from the Disney Pixar film with which he is obsessed. Baking really reminds me of my mother. She made fantastic cakes, so that really makes me feel like I'm doing the proper motherly thing when I'm making birthday cakes. And David really likes my cakes, particularly.
Did you grow up with the smell of baking?
Yeah, my mum was a good cook, but she didn't get to stretch her wings much because my father greatly mistrusted foreign food. But on cakes and buns and bread, she was fantastic, and that was permissible, so that's where she got to show her paces, as it were.
The memory of childhood is clearly one of Jo's main themes, but now that both she and Harry Potter have families, has she lost her principal inspiration?
I'm happier now than I've ever been in my life. I'm happier now than I was as a child, teenager, young adult. You know, I think middle age is probably going to be my time.
If her life and her writing have been some kind of struggle for completion, and she's now found it, what, if anything, is she going to do next? Has she written her last book? The Caledonian Hotel, Edinburgh. The top brass of both Warner Brothers and Universal Studios have flown over for a meeting with J.K. Rowling. Hollywood comes to her. She doesn't need to go to Hollywood. They're discussing the building of a massive 20-acre Harry Potter theme park in Florida and are seeking her approval.
You know what? Sitting in a room full of people who are trying to impress you, that's when I feel at my most fraudulent. Because I feel like I'm about 13 and they're all grown-ups. And I cover that up quite well, but I often think, why are you all looking at me for? Because for years I was the least important person in the room, and I was doodling on my notepad when I should have been taking minutes and actually writing Harry Potter stories.
The howler is floating in space, and its mouth is moving, but you can't hear what it's saying. But if you stand in the perfect spot right in front of this window, you have what's called hypersonic sound, and only that one person can hear what the howler is saying.
I think it must be quite odd to be J.K. Rowling. Half of her life seems almost normal, while the other half seems completely mad.
And the sensor will tell that there's somebody there. It will open its eyes, growl, and lunge at you.
There's also the question of money.
According to some press reports,
yeah,
you have £570 million.
Mm-hmm.
Is this true?
Those reports are bollocks.
How much do you have?
Loads, but I'm not telling you how much, but it's definitely not 570.
Why won't you tell me?
Because I think it's private.
But you have lots of millions of pounds.
Yeah, I do.
Money means that J.K. Rowling can afford to do her Christmas shopping in Tiffany.
Here's a new cuff that we have. It's wonderful. It's great. Yeah.
She also allows herself one particular indulgence: shoes.
Why do girls love shoes so much? I want all of those.
You're really nice.
Do you worry about people asking you for money all the time?
No.
Do they?
Honestly. Strangers write to me and ask for money. A lot. And sometimes I've given it. But with people that I know, it does change your relationships. Anyone who says differently is a fool or a liar. It does add a dimension to your relationships when your status changes initially, I think. But now, as time's gone on, I think my friends have made an adjustment and I've made an adjustment, and my experience is that your best friends are happy to take in the spirit that it's given, and you know, we can all relate pretty much as we ever did.
Do you worry that people at some point are going to ask you, though? Is it like a sort of shadow in a conversation? You think, I bet they're going to ask me for money?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I don't walk around at all thinking that everyone wants to get a bit of money from me. Are you leading up to touching me? Do you want a loan?
Every week, Jo Rowling receives up to 1,500 letters, either from fans or from people asking for charitable donations. That's over 75,000 letters a year.
Initially, I was very disorganised with my giving. I didn't have a thought-through system. And again, that was becoming a bit overwhelming as well. So I have a charitable trust now. And we've refined the objectives of the trust, which was a very useful exercise. So the trust does multiple sclerosis research, and that's one side of what it does. And then it mainly targets projects, large or small scale, that are to do with the alleviation of social deprivation, with a particular emphasis on women's and children's charities. Yeah, so I'm saying OK to that point, not to the other point. Okay. I become very angry when it comes to issues concerning social deprivation and social exclusion. And I become most irritated and angry by people who have really no idea how it feels to exist in poverty and how disadvantage cast an sometimes irreparable blight over people's lives. And I'm aggravated to real fury by the fact that there is a section of our society that can't join the dots and doesn't see how issues that affect even them, their safe lives, such as crime and drugs, things that touch the middle classes, have their roots often in terrible injustice. And it's amazing how people can't and don't care enough to try and redress some of those issues. Those things make me very angry.
Jo Rowling has given away millions of pounds. She's never forgotten what it was like to have very little money. Amidst all the fame and the trappings of success, it's probably quite easy to lose sight of who she was when she started out. So I wanted to take her back to her old flat in Leith, where she finished the very first Harry Potter book, and find out what her life had been like then. It's only a few miles from her main house in Edinburgh, but this is the first time she's been back.
Did you write in here?
Mm-hmm. This is really the room. Well, I finished Philosopher's Stone in here. This is really where I turned my life around. Completely. I mean, my life changed so much in this flat. I feel I really became myself here, in that everything was stripped away. I've made such a mess of things, but that was freeing. So I just thought, well, I want to write. So I write the book. And what is the worst that can happen? It gets turned down by every publisher in Britain, big deal. So, you know, it's really back to the old time here. My bedroom's a lot, my bedroom, the bedroom is a lot tidier now, God. God, that's much. This was a tip when I lived here. Oh, look, Harry Potter books. Now that's really freaky. And for years now, I felt like if it all disappeared, and some days I do feel like, is it real? Then this is where I would come back to, you know, this would be my baseline, I'd be back in Leith. And obviously if I'd known that 10 years, well, was it, yeah, 10 years on, I'd come back here with a film crew and there would be my published books in someone else's bookcase in this room. I mean, it's really incredible to me. It really, I mean, yes. Because it's such a well-worn part of my story now, it's a big yawn to hear how I wrote it, as though it was all some sort of publicity stunt I did for a year. But it was my life, and it was very hard. And I didn't know there was going to be this fairy tale resolution. And I coming back here is just full of ghosts.
For most writers, the act of writing is a form of therapy, a way of making sense of the world and their place within it. Now, Jo Rowling is writing again.
So, Jo, what are you writing now?
A story that I describe as a political fairy tale. And it's for, I think, slightly younger children, so that will probably be the next thing that I finish. I'm not in a mad hurry to publish. I would like to take my time.
Why?
Because I've lived with deadlines for 10 years, and I'm currently able to luxuriate in the fact that no one's really expecting it, no one knows anything about it, so I feel as though I've gone right back to the beginning where I was on Philosopher's Stone when it was my private world, and I'd really like to enjoy that sole possession for a while.
Political fairy tale, that's all you're prepared to say?
I think that's quite a lot, James.
It's the end of a year of filming. There are just a few more questions I want to ask.
When were you happiest?
Hospital for the birth of each of my children, and Venice last year with Neil.
What's your biggest regret?
That I didn't keep my mother on the telephone longer the last time I spoke to her.
What do you still want to achieve?
I want to get better.
Do you ever feel you just got lucky?
Having the idea was lucky.
Do you ever feel a fraud?
Less as I get older, but I have done.
What keeps you going?
I'm a born trier.
Why do you still write?
Because I love it and I need it.
How would you like to be remembered?
As someone who did the best she could with the talent she had.
Hi there. You know me, right? I'm Tom Felton and I play Draco Malfoy in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. But do you really know me? Or Dan, or Emma, or Rupert, in fact? I'll bet you don't. So I thought it would be fun to jot down a few questions and have my fellow cast members answer them so we can all get to know each other a little better. The key to this is they have to answer right away, the first thing that comes to mind.
Oh my goodness.
Like, I would say, what is your favourite word? If it were me, I would say atrocious. It's so expressive, don't you think? Atrocious.
Pretty cool word, actually.
Shall we see what the gang said?
Definitely.
OK, here we go. What is your favourite word?
Quidditch.
Sponge. Boston.
Awesome.
Verdurous. Bomb. Your crevice. Glockenspiel.
Splendid. Now, if you could eat just one food, what would it be?
I like ice cream.
Chocolate.
Indian.
Ice cream.
Pepperoni pizza. Fish and chips. Chinese.
Mediterranean.
Ice cream. Pizza.
Nutella, basically on anything.
Fish.
Fish? Dan, really?
It does taste nice.
As for me, chalk another one up for ice cream. I'm a chocolate guy. Do you prefer chocolate or strawberry?
Chocolate.
Chocolate.
Strawberry.
Both together. Chocolate.
Chocolate. Strawberry. Strawberry. Chocolate. Chocolate strawberries. Chocolate. Not stupid.
I didn't know ice cream preference could be linked to intelligence. My goodness. You defeat one dark wizard, you think you know everything. Let's move away from food for a moment. I always find it interesting which celebrities turn other celebrities' head. So, Hogwarts celebs, which famous person would you most like to spend the day with? Remember, the first person who comes to mind.
The Queen.
Muhammad Ali.
Alex Zane.
Quentin Tarantino. But my brother.
Oh, how nice, James, your brother. And I'm sure Oliver would return the favour and say James.
David Beckham.
What?
David Beckham.
I heard you the first time, you ungrateful weasel. How about you, Devon?
Angelina Jolie.
Ooh, Devon, Angelina Jolie. We'll see if we can work that one out for you, mate. Now, let's travel back in time. Which historical figure would you most like to spend the day with?
Lord Byron.
William Shakespeare. John Keats. Shakespeare, yeah, that'd be cool.
Oh, they're such poets at heart. Anyone else?
Muhammad Ali.
Robin Hood.
Jesus. Martin Luther King.
Nelson Mandela.
Winston Churchill. Eamon de Valera.
Eamon de Valera, born 1882, New York City, grew up in Ireland where he eventually became President of the Republic, contributed to the writing of Ireland's constitution, and whose New York Times obituary headline read, he dominated Irish life as a fighter, leader, hero, and statesman. Goodness, I felt like Hermione. Let's talk about your greatest musical fantasy. If you had your pick of any music act, with whom would you like to tour?
Kings of Leon. Led Zeppelin. Brian Jonestown Massacre. The Pixies. Iron Maiden.
Kings of Leon. Kings of Leon.
Kaiser Chiefs. Oasis.
Elton John. The Beatles.
Rage Against the Machine.
Now, back to reality. Who is the most famous person you've ever met?
Robin Williams once. Robert Downey Jr.
Annie Lennox. Tom Felton.
Oh,
Daniel Logan. Kevin Sinfield, Lee Rhinos captain. Princess Diana.
Ivana Lynch. Johnny Depp, and that was pretty amazing.
Let's dig deeper, shall we? What would you most like to change about the world?
All the fighting that's going on.
War. Crime. Poverty.
Inequality.
No war.
Poverty.
Probably my timekeeping.
Happiness.
Everyone to be ginger would be good. A ginger world, that would be cool.
I should point out to those of you watching outside the UK that this is ginger hair. Was that last question too deep? OK, then. Let's talk about sports, shall we? Which sport would you most like to master?
Cricket. Golf.
Football.
Boxing. Table tennis. Darts. Shoulder jumping. Karate, martial arts.
Football.
Golf.
Rock climbing. Some kind of martial art that meant I could kick everyone's ass.
Yes, well, I guess we know not to mess with them now, don't we? I noticed no one mentioned two of my favourite sports, rugby and Quidditch, of course. I wonder which they prefer. Rugby, Quidditch, rugby, Quidditch.
I'm gonna have to go with Quidditch. Quidditch.
Quidditch. Quidditch. Quidditch. Rugby. Rugby. Rugby league.
Quidditch. Quidditch.
Quidditch, definitely.
Quidditch is obviously big on our set. Tell me, do you travel much? Where would you most like to visit?
New Zealand. New York. New Zealand.
Australia.
Japan.
Hawaii. India.
Russia. South America. Australia.
South Africa.
Outer space.
Now, if your travel plans went terribly wrong and you became stranded on a desert island and could only have one book with you, which book would it be?
Great Gatsby.
The Old Man and the Sea. Harry Potter.
Robinson Crusoe.
The Journey of the Peaceful Warrior.
The Goblet of Fire.
The Northern Lights. Harry Potter.
Julie Cooper or the Bible.
How to build a raft.
How to build a raft. Quite brilliant. All right, we're coming up to the big finale. You ready for the lightning round? Here we go. What is your favourite sound?
The sound of the crowd when a goal goes in. Chalk on a blackboard. Music? I don't know.
The sound of cooking.
A horse neigh.
Hush.
Crash. Rap.
Heavy rain on a window when you're like inside and all warm and it's really kind of loud and yeah, that one.
What makes you laugh?
Dara O'Brien, the stand-up comic. Slapstick. Jokes.
People falling over. My friends.
Everything. Anything really. Ron Atkinson.
Ice Age. 1 and 2.
And finally, if you couldn't be an actor, what would you like to be?
I'd like to be a cartoonist. Professional sportsman.
Set designer.
Directing.
I'd like to be a singer.
Journalist.
A lawyer.
Skiing.
Nunnery. Being a nun.
Director. Guitar player. Professional darts player.
This has been great fun, but sadly this is coming to an end. as I pose this final question. What are you most grateful for?
Lots of things. I've managed to be alive.
My mum.
For everything. My family. My parents.
My mum. My health.
I'm quite grateful for this, for my part in this film. This whole acting thing with Harry Potter.
OK, you know the questions. Here are a few of my answers. The Beatles, the weather in England, golf, Quidditch, Fiji, a coin in water, Harry Potter, life, a musician, and once again, life. That's all for now. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you at Hogwarts.
Is that it?
That's it.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Welcome to Hogwarts.
When they said that we're going to do a Harry Potter theme park, I was just like, oh my goodness.
I'm very, very excited about it because there is nothing else like it in the world and it's gonna totally blow kids away.
We're building an authentic world of Harry Potter at Universal Orlando, and it's really important for us to follow the authenticity of the brand and the property.
Through 7 books and 8 movies, it's really just a marvelous world that was born from Joe Rowling's imagination. And to give us the ability to make it real is really exciting for everybody.
J.K. really leaned back on the filmmakers, and particularly on Stuart Craig, David Heyman, David Barron, who had brought her book to life.
I think everyone who has been involved in this has really worked hard to get it right and take what we've done in the films and run with it.
Stuart Craig in particular, whose vision of the world of Harry Potter has captured the hearts of so many.
Wicked.
The philosophy of the movies has always been to absolutely be true to the spirit of the books. And the theme park is an extension of the movies.
Alan Gilmore, who's an art director, is vital in ensuring that Stuart's vision is realized 3,000 miles away in Orlando, Florida.
It was very exciting to carry the film design through to real architecture that will let the public experience the sets that we've been in for many years because they're so fantastic.
You walk through the gate, you get to walk past the Hogwarts Express into the wonderful world of Hogsmeade.
These visits to Hogsmeade Village are a privilege.
There's going to be snow in Orlando, which is pretty amazing.
It's the character of Hogsmeade that it has these very, very tall roofs, leaning, slanting, falling.
If you look at the shops, they're going to be authentic to what people have either seen in the films, heard referred to in the films, or read in the books.
We've been able to design for the first time the interior of the 3 broomsticks.
Our space is this same architecture, same finish.
Everything about it is as genuine as possible. You know, even the food that one can order would appear on the menu for the Great Hall.
I think there'd be a lot of turkey and all that stuff.
I hope there's pudding.
People will be able to experience the 3 broomsticks, and then they'll be able to cross through into the hog's head and experience the hog growling and sniffling at them.
You will be able to have butterbeer, which has a kind of the froth on the top.
Joe Rowling was at a tasting of the butterbeer and loved it.
The flavor of this is great. Real comforting and nice and smooth going down. And you get a mustache.
The first thing I do when I get there, I'm going to go to the Hogshead pub and order myself 8 pints of butterbeer. It's not alcoholic and it's refreshing.
Honeydew Sweet Shop is brilliant. Honeydew's has all kinds of wonderful sugar-drenched substances in there which all just look fantastic and tasty. You know, stuff that you've seen for years that have mainly been eaten by Ron. And his teeth are fine.
So they have like chocolate frogs, every flavour beans, and some ones we haven't actually done in the film, like the cauldron cakes.
But there's also going to be stuff like treacle fudge, which I've never heard of before, but sounds like it could possibly be the nicest tasting thing in the world.
It's a replica of the movie One Shop.
Every muggle in the world would dream of going into Ollivander's and for a wand to select them out.
You can definitely see people walking around the parks with like the specs on, and the with the extendable ears, a wand in another hand, and it's just going to be one of those things really where it's not being seen anywhere else.
I will be going to get another wand, because I'm fed up with my wand. Maybe one will pick me up.
There's Zonko's Joke Shop.
Some of the stuff they've got in there is mind-boggling, so I can only imagine what fun will be had for the fans to be able to walk into this magic shop.
The wand chooses you. There's a sense of destiny. It's so great that there's a wand waiting for you.
The Owlery is a place where you can send a letter to anywhere in the world and it will arrive with a Hogsmeade postal mark on it, which is brilliant.
It's a great looking building, and right alongside it is the post office.
Imagine if you got a letter that was from Hogsmeade. You'd freak out.
Everything about it will be magical. There's just so many different things that they've got planned for this world. It's going to be amazing.
In the world of magic, witches and wizards aren't the only ones who possess great power. When you visit the wizarding world of Harry Potter, you'll discover this rather quickly. That is, if you're up for the challenge.
What I love is that there are different rides for different ages.
I'm particularly excited about all the roller coasters. The Dragon Challenge is one I'm very excited about because I like a fast roller coaster. It's going to be great.
Dragons! Come on, Harry. These are seriously misunderstood creatures.
Dragon Challenge will be the bigger roller coaster where you actually get to participate in one of the challenges from the Triwizard Tournament.
Good day, champions.
You'll walk through the champions tent and see various kind of artifacts from the Goblet of Fire. And then you set off on the ride.
Well done, Dragon!
It sounds fantastic. With the dragons and whatnot, going this way and that. I absolutely love roller coasters, proper adrenaline junkie, so I'm looking forward to that.
It has always been of immeasurable importance that the magical world be kept hidden from the world of muggles. But every so often, the wizarding world reveals itself. That is, if you know where to look.
Come on now, come closer. I got a real treat for you today.
Flight of the Hippogriff will be a fun little roller coaster experience where you get to go on a training flight with a hippogriff.
Say hello to Buckbeak.
Flight of the Hippogriff is really centered around the care of magical creatures class.
Before you get on the ride, you have to learn how to properly approach the hippogriff.
Hagrid gives everybody instructions when they're waiting to get on about how to behave.
Just make your bow.
Nice and low.
You keep eye contact and bow, and then it will bow back, and then you're allowed to go on the ride.
And then the ride is going to go past Hagrid's hut and past the hippogriff. It's just going to be there.
It's something that really makes you feel like you're really part of the Harry Potter world.
It's always wise to expect the unexpected. Well, when entering Hogwarts Castle, it's not wise, it's essential for survival. You never know who you'll find, or who will find you. And to those who dare the forbidden journey, I tip my hat and say, good luck.
Hogwarts Castle is absolutely vast. It's this kind of immense structure towering over the entire village. It looks like a proper castle, which is fantastic.
The biggest single edifice in that park is Hogwarts Castle, sitting on this huge cliff of rock. I think it should be absolutely jaw-dropping.
The main ride, Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, is in Hogwarts Castle.
The ride is essentially a condensed form of the chaos of Harry's life.
We are shooting an exclusive piece of film just for the ride, and that encompasses all of the kind of best moments from all the films.
The queue itself is an adventure.
Welcome to Hogwarts.
There's lots of moving portraits, which is just going to be wonderful to see people's faces when a portrait suddenly starts talking.
Amazing! You can actually see some of the setup, like Defense Against the Dark Arts room, the Common Room, the Great Hall.
And then to take off on this extraordinary ride.
We've got the life-size Whomping Willow, and I've heard the spider will be making an appearance in the ride, which I think I could have done without.
As many people watching this will know, Rupert is terrified of spiders.
I am a proper arachnophobic, and I could have a panic attack.
I think he'll cope. I might have to hold his hand, offer him a bit of comfort.
Can we panic now?
The goal is to make every guest that's going to come to experience our ride feel like they've really entered the world of Harry Potter.